liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. Keith, would you take roll, please?
Certainly. Chairman Fox,
Here.
Mike Mitchell,
Here.
Michelle LaRose,
Here.
Joe Kalani, Sue Grissom,
Here.
Tom Murphy.
Here.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to item 4. There are 3 items under here. The first one is to reaffirm the bylaws. This is something that we do annually. Troy, I don't think we changed anything this year.
I apologize. I meant to get that to you in the packet ahead of time. That is an item that is unchanged. So we have essentially just sent you the same one that was approved last year. If you don't feel comfortable approving it for whatever reason, that's certainly understandable. But there is no changes proposed on it.
Basically, just defining how we operate, roles and responsibilities, our agenda, format. You guys comfortable voting on it tonight?
Subcommittees.
Yep, subcommittees, all those types of things. If you're comfortable, we would just need a motion to reaffirm our bylaws.
I make a motion to reaffirm our bylaws for 2020.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Grissom, second from Commissioner Mitchell. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, item B, election of officers. Again, another annual task that we take care of. We have 3 positions on the Planning Commission: chair, vice chair, and secretary. Probably this year, because we know we've got a change in personnel, we should, in positions, we should probably vote on each individually. So I guess I'll open the floor up for, well, we'll talk about the chair.
I move for Larry Fox to become chair for 2020.
Support.
Any discussion? Anybody else like the job? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Now the position of vice chair.
I make a motion that we elect Michael Mitchell to be the vice chair this year.
I'll support that.
Accept that?
He was quick.
No room for discussion yet.
Any discussion on that at all? Okay, we have a motion to approve Mike Mitchell as vice chair for the Planning Commission of 2020. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up is the position of secretary.
Move to reappoint Keith Voigt as our secretary for 2020. Support.
All right, motion from Commissioner Mitchell, second from Commissioner Murphy. Any discussion? Keith, are you going to accept that?
I will.
All right. Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The other is not something we vote on. We have 2 subcommittees within the Planning Commission, and I'm just going to keep the committees as they have stood for the last year or 2. Our Ordinance Review Committee members will be Commissioner Murphy, Commissioner Grissom, and Commissioner Voigt. And our Site Plan Review Committee will remain Commissioner Voigt and myself. Those are the only 2 committees we have, correct? 2 I can think of?
Yeah, those are our 2 only. We kind of created an informal one on our future land use stuff. Member Mitchell is that. It's not outlined in our rules and procedures, so, but that's it.
Okay, sounds good. So now we are going to move on to item 5, which is actual approval of our agenda this evening.
Move to approve the agenda for January 9th, 2020.
Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Voigt, second from Commissioner Grissom. Any changes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next up, item 6A, meeting minutes from November 21st, 2019.
Move to approve the meeting minutes of November 21st, 2019.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Voigt, or motion from Commissioner Mitchell, second from Commissioner Voigt. Any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay, motion carries. Next up, we're looking for approval of our December 5, 2019 meeting minutes.
I can do that. I move to approve the meeting minutes from December 5th, 2019.
Support?
All right, we'll go with Commissioner Murphy, second from Commissioner Grissom. Any further change, or any changes to those minutes? All right, seeing none, we'll vote on that as all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay, motion carries. Next up, item 7 is call to the public. We've got 2 of them this evening, one now and one at the end of the meeting. If you're here for any agenda item or have any other comments you'd like to make, now would be the time. Just give us your name and the floor is yours.
Gary Corneo, and I'm here with my wife, Jan. We live at 2558 Cedar Lane. Lived there for 40 years. We also own the building through 3508 Avon LLC, which is located at the intersection of Krause and Heartland Roads. And we're here tonight. I believe all of you have a copy of the letter that I prepared about our issues with the site plan application 20-001. And I realize that I only have a short time to make points here, and so I'm not going to try and reiterate what's on the letter other than our deep concern with the drainage situation that occurs now upon the development of that site, and also our concern, particularly my concern as a former Planning Commission member and an architect, on the process of kind of switching horses midstream and then back again about commercial versus residential, and the resulting drainage issue, which is impacts our property, impacts the village in general. And I know some of you know I've been involved with promotion of the village for quite some time. So I have concerns about that and the process. There's a lot next to our lot that could have the same kinds of issues come up. Certainly wouldn't want to see that happen. I do understand the drainage issues there, as some of you know and have seen. I do all the maintenance on that site, so I've seen water, snow, high, low, everything. So I understand what's going on there, and it gives me deep concern about what's been developed so far and where it proceeds from here. So I have experience with the site. I actually had my students design a house for that site about probably almost 15 years ago when I was teaching at Lawrence Tech. But I just wanted to go through that. I've had, subsequent to my letter, a discussion with the Drain Commission, which kind of adds to the concerns that I have. And I will be available. I understand the rules that I can't raise my hand and participate in your discussion, but if there's any questions about my letter or the thoughts, I'd be glad to answer questions from the commission, while you discuss that item. And one thing I wanted to add to the letter, I had mentioned it to Detroit, item number 3 on the HRC report about draining that site to the wetland, that, as Troy pointed out to me, that requires a permit from the bodies that regulate the Wetlands Act. But anyway, it was kind of casually mentioned in that memo. So I thank you for your consideration and appreciate the effort, knowing firsthand, what you have to do for 15 years, right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Come on up. If you give us your name, the microphone is yours.
All right, so I'm Dave Breyer. I'm the new owner of 1010 North, Old US 23.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and you guys are rezoning. So, I mean, I wasn't really told about it other than the fact that you guys contacted me. The old
Okay.
owner didn't mention it to me, so.
Okay. We're going to get to that agenda item in a minute, and I think we'll
Okay.
probably invite you up.
Great.
Let you know what we're doing. How's that sound? Okay. All right, let's, no one else. We're going to close the call to the public, and we're going to move right to item 8A, which is that zoning application number 19-003 for 1010 Old US 23. In a minute, I'm going to turn this over to Troy, but if you recall during that meeting, we tabled that particular application item by a motion and a vote. So the appropriate move now would be to motion, second, and vote to remove it from the table, and then I'll turn the floor over to Troy. So if I can get somebody to do that.
Move to remove rezoning number 19-003 from the table for discussion.
Second that.
All right, we'll go with Commissioner Mitchell and second Commissioner LaRose. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay, motion carries. Now what we're going to do is turn the floor over to our planning director, Troy Langer. If you'd like to come up, because you might learn something. Troy, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Let me start off by showing a zoning map of Heartland Township and kind of showing where this property is located. This is US 23 going north and south here, and then this is M59 that intersects with it going east and west. The property we're looking at is south of M59, somewhat sandwiched between old US 23, which would be here, and then US 23, which would be just to the east of it. It is this red square right here. In the history on that, at least the recent history, is the property just to the south, this white property with a crosshatch, is property that was the Beauchamp Landscape business. And that property was under a request for a Kubota Bobcat dealer. And when they came to us, and we looked at what the zoning is, and the zoning of that property is PD, and generally when there's a PD, a planned development, there is a planned development agreement and a set of standards that outline what the uses are. That is not the case in this location, so we decided the proper thing to do would be to correct the zoning and change that zoning, which was brought at the same time originally as this request. And then this little anomaly of this red right here, which is the current property that we're looking at, that is general commercial, just does not fit with this area of light industrial, and then even further down it's actually industrial. So both properties were brought, the township was the applicant, they were owned at the same time by the same person. However, at the public hearing in October, the owner at that time, who was not opposed to the rezoning, had indicated that there was a potential sale of this property and had requested it be postponed or tabled until January. So the Planning Commission honored that request. The staff became aware that the property had sold. Staff did contact the new owner to say, just so you know, there's a pending rezoning of your property, and here's some notice of that. So if you got questions, let us know, and you're welcome to attend the meeting. So we invited the applicant to attend the meeting so he could see what's going on. To kind of maybe explain maybe the future land use map on that, this is now the future land use map. And again, this is 23, and here's 59, and then the area we're looking at is down in this area. And all of this purple color would represent research and development and light industrial. As you look to the guide of this, it is planned industrial research and development, and that would include light industrial as is proposed at this time. So the whole rezoning is to essentially clarify this little anomaly, bring this area into conformance with the future land use map, as well as the surrounding area. I can show you an aerial of what that property is. This is that property. Here's Old 23 on the west side. This is 23 on the east side. There's a series of small cabins on this property, which would not be permitted in the commercial category. They certainly aren't going to be permitted in the light industrial either, so they'll continue to remain non-conforming. There's some other activities out here, probably not consistent with the general commercial, probably more consistent with the light industrial that's proposed. So, we haven't done a thorough exam of everything that's going on in this property. It's kind of existed in this way for many, many years, predates me. So that's a little bit of the history of how this project came about and how we notified the current owner. So.
So, you sound familiar?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
it sounds familiar. Yeah. I mean, it would have been nice if Mr. Beauchamp just told me, give me a heads up, because obviously I would have postponed it until I came here to speak with you guys, just
Okay.
to see what your plans are.
Well, let's talk, and let's see whether you're ready for us to move on this evening or not, or whether
Sure.
we should table this again. What kind of questions
I guess
roll
really
through your head right now?
what I have is we own multifamily properties similar to this one in Brighton, Whitmore Lake, Hamburg. And my plan is to clean up the property, make it more presentable than it is and probably has been running, from what I understand, for a number of years. And to run it in the respect that it's running now, which
So
is
you're looking to leave-
residential rentals.
You're looking to leave the houses on it.
Yes.
So how does that impact what we're doing here?
It really doesn't. Those that would
already-
be non-conforming, they would not be permitted in the commercial category that we have on it now. They will not be permitted in the light industrial category that is requested.
What, I'm asking questions for him now. So what types of improvements is he going to be allowed to make in either zoning category with a non-conforming use?
He can make improvement, he can do repair to non-conforming structures that don't exceed 50% of the replacement value of that structure. So he could make upgrades or make improvements to it as long as it didn't exceed 50%. Maybe if he had to replace some windows, if he had to replace some doors, if he needed to do maybe some interior work. But certainly if he was looking to knock these down and construct new ones, those would not be permitted, either in the current zoning or the proposed.
Yeah.
Sound familiar? Are you kind of familiar
Yeah,
with
I'm
what's
okay
going
with
on
that.
here?
Yeah, I want to work with you guys, and I want it to be nice, and I want it to run good.
Yeah,
So
well, we
that's-
just want to make sure that you understand
Yeah, I
exactly
can't
what's
tear it
going
down.
on here.
Yeah, if something burns or gets knocked over or the wind destroys it, then it'll have to move towards your new zoning requirement.
Right, and the other thing is if we don't rezone it, I think somebody's storing things on that property right now. That's not permitted.
Yeah, that would be Mr. Beauchamp.
Yeah, so you're charging him rent?
Well, yeah, I mean, supposed to be paying rent.
Okay, so, well, just so you know, that type of activity can't go on zoned as GC.
Yeah.
The storage of materials, is that permitted in the LI as long as it's accessory to the primary use?
It certainly becomes more possible in the LI district than it would in the GC. The GC is our general commercial. There's much more restrictive requirements on storage. Storage as a use generally is not permitted there, but storage is only in enclosed areas, and generally those enclosures have to be constructed of material that matches the building. This would be a difficult one to determine what that is, but in light industrial does allow storage, again, probably some enclosure, but not as heavy restriction on how the fencing would be.
Any thoughts of ever, well, I suppose if you could sell enough Bobcats in town, you might consider expansion there.
Yeah, I'm just kind of going off my past.
Right.
Is I've just typically bought things that are in rough shape and fixed them up and continued to run them as they are. So, whether that be, can I plant trees and, things?
Oh,
like
yeah,
that?
yep.
Okay,
That wouldn't, the zoning would not impact your ability to plant trees.
okay. I mean, I might put some landscaping, some shrubbery around. I just want to make it look nice and.
Yeah, if he chose, he could fix the driveway up and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, that,
Okay.
again, the rezoning would not impact that.
Just want to make sure we're asking,
Yeah.
are you comfortable with us doing this tonight?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably should go a little further in depth, but I kind of, just roll with the punches a little bit. Mr. Beauchamp, if he would have told me, that would have been nice, but he didn't, and I'm okay with that. And, I didn't mention him anything to this meeting. I'm sure he knows about it, but, he is storing some stuff on there, and his plan was to remove it as soon as possible. So I gave him 45 days in the beginning, and then he said, would I extend it a couple more? And I said, yes, so.
Okay.
But I think his plan is to move all the stuff that's on there off, and whatever's left, I will get rid of.
Gotcha.
So-
Would you have any other questions for us?
No, I don't, no.
No?
Can I go?
You can. Do you guys have any questions?
No.
I have one question.
Sure.
I was unaware of the facility to the north there intruding on the.
The dog
onto this-
pen?
Is that what that is?
It's a dog run for the
okay.
kennel.
Oh, that's a kennel over there? Yeah. I haven't been out to the property, very little. So
Okay.
I've been by there a few times, but we're about to start there next week, so.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll have to work through
It-
those arrangements with them. Mr. Beauchamp owned that parcel to the north of there also.
Okay,
So, and he sold that to the owners of the,
kennel.
it's a doggy daycare.
Animal crackers.
Animal crackers. It's very loosely described as daycare. A lot of people will drop their dogs off for the day
Oh, yeah.
while they're at work and pick them up.
Yeah.
Or they offer grooming services there.
Yeah.
So not a full-blown or kennel. The dogs are housed indoors.
Yeah.
So that is just an outdoor exercise area.
I think he actually does have a lease with them for the fence. It's something minimal, but I'll probably have to continue that just because now I can really see the intrusion. I didn't know how far it was. He did mention it to us, so.
So this might not be accurate when you're looking at an aerial image and the property that may not be accurate.
okay.
I've got a survey, and I can give you a copy of this later.
have that,
Then you can get maybe a more accurate depiction of that fence.
Yeah.
You're welcome to get a copy from us.
Okay. Yeah, I think Carol sent me,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
I probably should do a little more research
Yeah.
on this stuff before I buy it, but
yeah.
here we are.
Yep, one more.
Well, as long as if you discover something, you don't come back and
Yeah.
say,
No.
it's our fault. You're good.
Typically, I just take care of it,
Okay.
handle it.
One other question. What
Sure.
about the billboard, right? So what I understand is if we switch the zoning over to the industrial more category, that almost helps them as well because the billboard falls in that use, right?
Close.
It's allowed closer.
Billboards are allowed in the industrial
Industrial,
district.
right.
So that would be a non-conforming
Sure.
billboard. Currently in the GC,
C.
it would remain non-conforming in the light industrial as well.
Yeah.
So,
Is it getting closer?
getting closer,
Well,
but
maybe,
so
but,
Yeah.
so if it decides, someday they decide that pole's a little unsafe and it needs to be replaced, that's when you'll have to say, time out, you can't put it back up.
Yeah, he
It's
owns
gone.
that.
He owns,
that still, Mr. Beauchamp. So if you
okay.
told me I had to tear it down tonight, that wouldn't be that big a deal to me. So,
Well,
but
I
he-
don't think
he does
anybody's
still own it.
telling you that.
okay. So you know about it.
So
Okay.
you're aware of it.
Okay. You're
So
aware of it.
if the pole gets unsafe or the billboard gets unsafe, he's not allowed to put it back up? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because it's the same as the structures.
Okay.
If one of your structures has a fire or becomes inhabitable in some way that you have to spend more than 50% of its value
Okay.
to repair it or replace it, since it's non-conforming, it can't happen. It's done.
Okay.
It's over with.
Okay.
The billboard will be the same thing.
Okay, yeah. And I'm sure he probably knows that.
Okay.
Okay. is that
Any
it?
further questions for him? If not, you'll find on page 1 of the staff memo dated January 2nd, 2020, a motion.
Recommend the approval of rezoning number 19-003 for the property addressed as 1010 Old US 23, ID number 4708-28-300-16, approximately 1.97 acres in area, and as described in this memorandum, from general commercial to light industrial, based on the following findings. The requested rezoning of the subject property to the LI zoning classification is consistent with the Township Comprehensive Development Plan, which indicates the property should be developed as light industrial or planned development. Access to the subject property is provided from Old US 23, and the property has a minimum required footage along Old US 23 for the LI zoning classification. And lastly, the requested rezoning of the subject property to LI zoning classification is compatible with the surrounding uses, and zoning is more appropriate than the current GC zoning classification.
I'll support that.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval on rezoning application 19-003 from Commissioner Voigt, second from Commissioner Murphy. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations, and thanks for investing in Heartland, by the way.
Yeah, well,
All
you
right.
know what, it's a great area. What a great location.
It is.
Really. Yeah, we
It
live
is.
in Commerce, but that whole, what you guys are doing is beautiful. Really does look nice, so.
Well, thank
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Yes, you too. Next up is item 8B. This is site plan application number 20-001, the Brennan office site plan. Did you want to come on up? What we're going to do is we're going to turn the floor over to our planning director, allow him to introduce the project, allow you to add any comments you'd like, and then we're going to go through the staff letter, all of us together.
Okay.
So with that, Troy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me start off by just explaining where this property is located. Again, this is the zoning map of Heartland Township and the infamous corner of 23 and M59. This property is north of that intersection in an area commonly referred to as the village of Heartland. And I'm zooming in on this area. Is the area generally referred to as the village. The property we're looking at is right here on the southeast corner of Kraus, which is an east-west street, and then Heartland Road, and of course that street changes its name to Avon as it goes north, but right at this southeast corner, that's the property that we're looking at. It is in this light pink color, which is a limited commercial category. It's somewhat of a unique zoning category in that this particular zoning category allows residential and commercial in this category. I mentioned earlier the GC, our general commercial, our heavier commercial, if you will, does not allow residential, but this allows both residential, single family, as well as even two-family, and then commercial offices and so forth. Mr. Brennan approached the township and indicated that he had purchased and acquired this property and had a desire to do a couple things on this property. One was to construct his residence that he would live and his family would live, and two, he has an office business that he operates, and he would like to have his office be in this structure as well. We had a couple of informal site plan review meetings with him discussing the process. Ultimately, the applicant decided to apply for a land use permit to just construct a single-family residential structure. I've outlined the history on that. I can probably show you a site plan. So this is a general site plan of that property, Kraus Street to the north, and then Heartland Road on this side of the property. So the applicant came to the township with just a land use permit for a single-family residential structure. Our ordinance outlines that single-family residential structures only require land use permits. We looked at it for conformance with setbacks and lot coverage that's consistent with that zoning district. That land use permit was approved. There was a few amendments to that. They decided to relocate it or shift it. So if you look through the staff report, you'll see reference to an amendment to that. They attempted to save or wanted to save an existing oak tree that's shown on this plan as well. And then while constructing it, the applicant had been in contact with staff about the conversion of a portion of this to his office. And the goal, the applicant's goal was if he had to physically, if he's required to do something when it's a commercial business, he didn't want to have to rip out stuff that he had just constructed in order to make it comply with the commercial standards. So he went ahead and tried to incorporate that into the construction. And certainly that complies with there's no requirement that if you're building a house that you can't have a commercial door on the front of your house. And there's no requirement if you're building a house that you can't put a fire suppression sprinkler system in your house. And so what he did is he had tried to, thinking ahead, incorporate all of those things as much as even when he did his driveway, wanted to make it wide enough so that when he came in to be commercial, it would already be the required width. There's no maximum width for a driveway in a residential district, and there's no maximum requirement on how big a driveway can be in a residential district. So Mr. Brennan was just simply attempting to comply with standards he anticipated he would have to meet down the road. This ultimately now is the site plan that you see. He has a structure here that will serve both his residential use as well as his office use. He has a ramp that he's put in here that is not required for residential, but he constructed it knowing that at some point he would have a request come before the Planning Commission for commercial. He has his parking lot here and driveway. The request that you have is not this whole building. There's a portion of this building that he wants to have converted to be used for his office and commercial. And this is a floor plan of the building. It's not the entire, I'll kind of back out. So this is the porch that you can see that kind of wraps around the front. This would be that ramp that I pointed out. And then what's shaded in the gray there would represent the portion of the building that the applicant desires to have be commercial for his office. There's a bathroom in there, there's a conference room, and then there's another office over here that would be used as part of their retail store where they would sell artwork and decor stuff. So that is the request, that they want to have a portion of this structure for commercial. That requires a site plan approval from the Planning Commission, and that's why he's here tonight.
Okay. Would you like to add anything? And then we'll get into the letter.
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of information. So good evening. I'd first like to thank Troy and Martha and the Planning Commission for your guidance through the process. I really appreciate it. My name's Kevin Brennan, and I'm the owner of Michigan Financial Planning, and I've operated in Livingston County since 2011. I've been a financial advisor in the community since 2004. But more than that, I'm a lifelong resident of Heartland. Both me and my wife are graduates of Heartland High School. And we look forward and are really excited to just raise our family and grow our business in this amazing community. Michigan Financial Planning helps families and small businesses simplify their finances through comprehensive financial planning that includes investment management and a wide range of insurance solutions. We employ one part-time employee at this time. Michigan Financial Planning would occupy just over 480 square feet of that space, which would be on their, what's the northeast portion of that space. And I hold meetings Monday through Thursday. We're open Monday through Friday, but I hold meetings Monday through Thursday. And on average, about 2 to 3 client meetings would take place during those days. And the portion on the far northwest side, that one area, approximately 188 square feet, I believe. Sorry if I keep on turning away from the microphone, but 188 square feet. Eventually, no time in the immediate future, we have 4 kids, and 2 of them are recent twins, 4-month-old. But when time is available, we do plan to open up a Christian-inspired art and decor boutique store. It would be something that would be open part-time, probably 20 to 25 hours per week. We do anticipate that we would have one other employee off-site that would work on-site, so who's not a resident of our household, that would work on-site to help facilitate during those times. We do plan it to be more of something that's, you know, a walkable feature to the downtown Village area, something where if, hey, your kids are playing baseball at Springer Fields, or you've got extra time while the kids are doing something at the high school or the middle school, it's a place to drop in and, you know, waste 15 minutes of your time and hopefully a few dollars too. And so just a nice little downtown boutique store to hopefully add a little bit to the walkability feel. Someone leaves Settlers Park and they're looking to, you know, spend a few minutes walking around, checking things out. Hopefully it adds to that, that portion of the downtown. The other part that I'd say, I know it's, you know, been hurdles and learning experience for everybody through the process. The one thing that I would say, you know, from other communities, from what we found, you know, when Gibbs Planning did their reviews and stuff, is that walkable, work-live style, you know, building is definitely becoming very popular around the country. And, you know, I just happened to be the first one to kind of go through the process, and I think for everybody in the community, it was a little bit of a learning experience. But I'll do all I can to, you know, support the community. We've been a very supportive family and business in the community up to this point. And, you know, as I mentioned, I'm just really excited to be a positive part of the Village area in Heartland.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Since this is a site plan review, I think what we'll do is go through our staff review letter dated January 2nd, 2020, and I am on packet page 44 or page 3 of that particular memo, down towards the bottom where it says site plan review. So we'll go through this. We got any questions for you or Troy? We can just have a little bit of a conversation. In the very first paragraph there, Troy, notice you're mentioning section 3.2, architectural standards in the LC district. Didn't necessarily review to those because now we're looking at a commercial building versus a single family. When I looked at that though, they're pretty much complying with them though, aren't they?
Yes, yes. If this project had not been constructed and the applicant was just bringing the entire thing in front of you tonight, this would comply with the architectural standards in our zoning ordinance for this zoning district.
Okay. section 3 there in the second paragraph, section 3.1.12E does not establish specific lot size, setbacks, lot coverage. So you mentioned earlier, what did you do with this particular application when you approved the home?
So the LC district is a little different than your other zoning districts that might say a required setback of 15 feet from the side or 50 feet from the front. The LC district mentions that the setback should be the same as surrounding properties. So in this case, what we did is, I'll zoom out, I'll use this aerial, and just give me a second to go up to the area we're looking at. So if you look at the area here, you'll notice some of in these properties up here are in the LC district, and some of them are built right up to the lot line, right up to the street right-of-way line. And so what we did is tried to also identify what were some of the other ones, and what the applicant proposed. For one, he's got a fairly large parcel in comparison to some of these other properties there. So we felt that as the application came in for residential as well as for commercial, that this complied with the setbacks as well as lot coverage, which again are not specifically defined. They are based on what the surrounding properties are.
Okay. Any questions on that? Not, I will flip to page 4, and now I'm under the site description headings and site requirements being the second there. So we have some criteria that we take a look at, and we've got a floor area for the principal permitted uses. The principal permitted use for retail is anything less than 2,000 square feet is permitted. You're proposing 188 square feet, so they would meet that requirement. Professional offices, anything less than 3,000 square feet, you're proposing 484 square feet, and so you would also meet that requirement. Any questions on that portion? Comments? Off-street parking, we require 1 space for every 300 square feet of gross floor area for your retail and your office. You have just under 700 square feet of gross floor area for both, so 3 required parking spaces. You're proposing 6, and that would also meet the requirement. Barrier-free parking, we're requiring 1. You have 1, and so you're meeting that requirement. Any questions on those?
Chairman Fox, I have a
Yep.
question on the off-street parking, just because it's already installed, and I apologize, I haven't been involved in the history of this.
Yeah.
Was that prior approved through one of the previous land use permits then?
Troy, I believe so.
Oh, well,
Yes and no?
technically, no. The land use permit was for residential, and a parking space is not required. So what the applicant did is constructed it, and then this plan you see here complies with that. So the applicant is kind of representing what he has constructed out in the site, and then what we're saying now is, so the applicant's kind of taking a risk. When you go ahead and physically construct your parking lot, you're kind of taking a risk that it would conform. So that's something we work with the applicant to share. Here's what the standards are, so if you're going to build it, make sure you build it to these standards, and then when you come in for site plan review, which he's doing now, he's now showing a plan where he's already constructed that, and it does conform. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But at the time the land use was, your question was, at the time we actually reviewed the land use permit, it was a residential land use permit. There are no minimum parking size requirements and number of parking spaces that are required. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So did this fall in line with the other things like the entry doors and the sprinkler system? You knew what you were going to have to do, and if I was going to put in parking in a driveway, I was going to build it to meet these standards when I did come for my site plan review.
Yeah,
Okay.
the building department and stuff was reviewing it as if it was going to be commercial out of the gate.
That's at the county?
Yeah. yeah.
Okay, all right. Any other questions on those items? Okay, if not, I'm going to move down to landscaping and screening. Troy, you just want to comment on the landscaping in regards to this particular site?
So there's quite a bit, probably more quite a bit more landscaping than's even required. The applicant's putting in quite a bit of evergreen trees over here because this is their patio, so they're trying to create a little screen area from Heartland Road. And then you can see the trees that are proposed. He meets the requirement for street trees as well as parking lot trees.
Okay. Questions on landscaping at all?
I had a
Yep.
question,
Yeah.
Chairman. Just, and it may be fine with the trees selected, but I didn't know if there's any specific requirements with the type of trees in proximity to roads and just like how root systems could damage sidewalks and roads. So just am still becoming familiar with it, but I was just curious if there's any concerns with that.
Yes,
proposed
there's
trees.
always those concerns. Landscaping and utilities and sidewalks and roads are almost always in conflict with each other. Sometimes the engineers don't want trees in the easement areas for utilities, don't want trees near sidewalks or roads, and one of the things we look at here is making sure we have adequate landscaping, which means putting trees in those areas sometimes. Our goal is to try to locate those trees as best as we can so they don't interfere with underground utilities, sidewalks, roads. That is a you don't even know how much you're diving into a topic on that one. That's a constant issue.
To that, too, I'll just mention that we took all of that into consideration in the construction and layout of the plan, too. And you have some guidelines that are written in the landscaping portion of the development guidelines, such as like an umbrella tree in each side of the parking area, and all along areas that were near the setbacks. We use low-rooted tree systems like small crabapple trees that are along the road, whereas the stuff that might have deeper root systems, the large pine trees and stuff, are all closer to our structure and far off of setbacks or utility areas. Everything on there is installed except for the shrubs that go around the porch, the riprap drainage, and the rain garden at this point. Just our landscaping company couldn't finish due to weather.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
yeah, you're welcome. Anything else?
I just have a question, because I know in the letter, it also says that you have 6 trees on the east side of your parking, coniferous trees. What are those trees that have been already planted?
Yeah, so they're all, they're smaller pines. I don't know the exact
Okay.
type, but it's a thinner, narrower pine tree that shouldn't intrude on the parking or anything else. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
This plan doesn't
Show it. I know it
show
said it had, and I was just curious, because again, it was tight area, and I thought, oh, boy.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got evergreen trees, but it
Yeah.
sounds like you've got a variety, it's a lot narrower, and
Yeah.
hopefully provides some screening, like
Yeah.
you're saying. Okay.
Lighting, no site lighting other than porch lights, that type of situation?
Yep.
Okay. We've got some DPW comments, Heartland Engineer. I guess I'd like to just touch on the Hubble, Roth, and Clark letter, comments about drainage. Those have been brought up. Can you explain what, basically what Mike Darga found, which is in the memo?
Yep.
But what's the process for all of this site drainage issues as it relates to the township, and what's the step after here, and what's going to happen?
So the process for a single-family home, unfortunately, we don't maybe unfortunately, when applicants come in for a land use permit for a single-family home, that often does not include a detailed landscape or a grading plan to show stormwater runoff. Reason being is that can be costly to do, and it's not something that is typically required for any land use permit. Generally, what they'll show is small arrows depicting which way they intend to have the stormwater go, and that has been deemed sufficient for the purpose of a land use permit for residential purposes. When you get to a commercial project, now you start getting into a more, we need to see more detail on stormwater runoff, what's going to happen. And what we did is we asked, we had some concern with stormwater runoff out onto Kraus Road and how it might impact surrounding properties. So we had our engineering consultant, Mike Darga, go out to the site and visit the site and do a physical inspection of the site and outline what he thought would need to be done to correct stormwater runoff. And you have an email that outlines his comments. I should note that he felt the majority of the water runoff problems were not necessarily a result of this project or this property, but are a result of Kraus Road itself and improvements that needed to be done to Kraus Road. I don't think he got into that a whole lot, but that is part of the conversation that he had with me. That's not anything this applicant is able to fix or can even handle that. That's a project that's going to involve maybe either the township and or the road commission determining is that a road they want to fix. So what we looked at is what can we do to address the stormwater runoff on this property. And Mike Darga thought what we need to do is identify where are we directing the stormwater runoff and ask the applicant to prepare a plan to depict where he intends to have the stormwater runoff to, and we would probably install some rain gardens on this property to help control stormwater detention and retention on this property. The applicant has recently submitted that plan. I've submitted that to our engineering consultant. I just haven't got comments back on that yet. That was fairly recent. And I generally need to give our engineer about a week or so to review that. But I'm expecting that he'll come back with some comments, and then that will, as this project moves on to the next phase, which is another land use permit for the commercial, that will address those issues and through the construction of the site and the finish of the grading of the site and the installation of these stormwater detention areas, rain garden areas. Hopefully that'll address those issues.
Sounding familiar, Kevin?
Yes, yeah, all I would say is, you know, we do occupy the property now as our residence. I'm watching for any puddling or, you know, seeing where you might have like streaming off the property. I've seen none. You know, I have talked with the Drain Commission and let them know that we would reapply silt fence if they or we, you know, saw an issue of that coming around or something to at least alleviate the issue in that area, but none has come up. And we've had a pretty rainy season these past few weeks, even when it hasn't been cold. And I've noticed no issue coming from our property. That's not to say there might not be puddling on Kraus Road. All I would say is I would lend some patience to the fact that we just couldn't complete all of the landscaping before you know, the project was complete. We still need to sod or seed. This spring, finish the rain gardens, put in the riprap drainage. The other thing that I would note, as far as I can tell in the village area, I don't believe there's any other property that's put in gutter or the drainage systems to the level or extent that we have right now.
Okay, any questions on that?
I have a question, Commissioner Fox. The letter from Mike Darga states that the riprap in the spillways should be placed ASAP, but it sounds like you're going to do that as part of the rest of the final landscaping?
Yeah, so I mean, from our landscaping company, I mean, they've basically shut down for the season because of frozen ground. So to come in there and dig and, put down the material and stuff and move the rocks at this point is just, but we are definitely planning on moving on it as soon as, according to them, I'm their first project this spring, so.
Okay, but it sounds like you've got your erosion control measures in place anyway?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay.
So we're all in the loop on that? What's going to happen?
I just have a question. So before a land use permit is issued for the commercial portion, he has to satisfy the Drain Commission's letters, their concerns?
Not directly. The Drain Commissioner won't really do a review of this until we have issued a land use permit to them.
Okay.
To this applicant, and then this applicant takes an approved land use permit from the township. We have been in contact trying to, they have to have silt fencing, or they did have to have silt fencing up, but he can certainly talk to the Drain Commissioner and try to get ahead of that. But your question's very specific, is before a land use permit, would he have a Drain Commissioner approval? No, that's not the process. That's not how that works.
Okay, so, but we don't have to issue a land use permit until all those concerns are addressed, though, correct? I mean, how would we have any control of it after the fact?
We rely on our engineer. We rely on
Right.
our engineer to say,
So-
yep, we think this is a satisfactory
Okay.
stormwater management system.
If I may add to that, the Drain Commissioner's Office issues soil erosion permits typically for a 2-year period, so you probably do have an existing permit that's still valid unless you had at some point requested it to be closed. So they would be able to add on the continued work that you're doing. You can just add on to the permit if it's still open.
So what's going to happen here is you're going to issue the land use permit, then he's going to gather up all his documents and take a trip to Howell.
Yes.
And he's going to be stopping by the Drain Commissioner's office. He's got a trip to the Road Commission for a driveway permit.
Yep.
And all of those things. That stuff is not things that are dealt with and handled, approved before we ever approve a site plan.
That's correct. That's no
And-
different, that's, every project works that way.
Right. And if you recall, I know there's a question mark on this commercial driveway thing. We just approved an expansion of Walden Woods here a month ago, and you saw a second entrance added. You didn't see a driveway permit at that point, because the applicant's taking all those documents after they get the information and approval from the township and a land use permit, and carts themselves off to Howell to present their wares. And then those reviewing agencies will go through that. So whether you need a commercial driveway permit or a residential driveway permit is not a discussion here. That's a county issue. And it'll be dealt with at the county level. So, any more questions on water? You look like you might have one.
I have a question, not on the stormwater, but on the drinking water. I just
Sure.
wanted to clarify that, that it would be a well but municipal sewer. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Also, for the benefit of everybody that read Mr. Corneo's letter, Troy and I had this discussion. Troy, can you explain to everybody what the process for a residential home that was built last month is versus had Mr. Brennan purchased a home that was 100 years old in the village that was used for residential and wanted to do what he's doing today? Can you explain how they're similar or different?
So if Mr. Brennan had purchased an existing home that was 100 years old that had been used as residential, and he came to the Planning Commission and said, I'd like to convert a portion of that 700 square feet to be office and retail, he would be going through the process that we're going through right now. He would have to have a site plan that shows adequate parking, he'd have to comply with the current building code requirements and provide a barrier-free ramp to the, provide access. He may have to do interior work to make sure his archways are wide enough, that he has adequate restroom facilities and so forth. Those are building code requirements. That's not really my area, but my area is on the outside, and he would have to have a parking lot that had sufficient parking. We'd be looking at stormwater runoff, just as we are here. So if this site were a existing home that was no longer going to be used completely for residential purposes and would be for commercial, it would be this same process. If you flip that around and the applicant were coming to you as he is right now, and nothing had been built, we'd be having these same discussions we're having right now, the site plan. You just wouldn't have the luxury of seeing anything out there. You would be looking at the plan as you're looking at it right now. Does that help answer?
Well, I just want, what I'd like to emphasize for everybody, and including, residents here from the village and that own businesses, that you didn't save yourself, you didn't get out of anything.
No.
You still have to do exactly what you have to do. Sorry.
I know it.
Sorry, not the time. But, so the process that Mr. Brennan took versus, on this new home versus a 100-year home, at the end of the day, he still will have to meet the same requirements. He still will go through a site plan review.
Because of the uniqueness, I would say it's almost a little bit more difficult than if I had just chosen residential or commercial. But hopefully, it paves the way for a lot of other opportunities, especially around Heartland.
Okay. Do you have any other comments? The DPW letter, the fire marshal's letter, they have no issues with it. You're going to continue to work with the engineer. Of course, you'll have to, because before you can take your trip to Howell, you've got to get some things ironed out with staff and our engineer.
Okay.
Any other questions for him this evening? If you're so inclined, there is a motion located on the first page of the staff review letter.
So I move to approve site plan application 20-001, a request to allow for office, commercial, and retail uses on a portion of the first floor of the residential structure for an area of approximately 672 square feet and provide off-street parking on the subject site. Approval is subject to the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall adequately address the outstanding items noted in the Planning Department's memorandum dated January 2nd, 2020. Revised plans, if necessary, shall be subject to administrative review by the planning staff prior to the issuance of the land use permit. 2, a land use permit for the proposed office, commercial, and retail use is required. 3, future expansion of the office, commercial, and retail uses shall require additional approvals from the Planning Commission and other government agencies as applicable. 4, applicant complies with any requirements of the Department of Public Works Director, Township Engineering Consultant, Heartland Deerfield Fire Authority, and all other government agencies as applicable.
Support.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve site plan application number 20-001 for the Brennan office facility from Commissioner Murphy, a second from Commissioner Mitchell. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you for investing in Heartland.
Appreciate it.
Now, call to the public.
I'd just like to, again, thank you for your consideration. I've done a lot of research into this, and that's why I wanted to answer your question. If it had been done properly, there's a tremendous amount of expense to make that driveway approach conform with commercial, which is what I had to do because of drainage. about 2,500 square feet of water comes straight now into Kraus Road. The commercial permit would not have allowed that. I confirmed that with Kim Hillier at the Road Commission. I understand the process and have no issues with that. I have no issue with the land use of the building, as I stated in my letter. I have a real issue with the process, because tomorrow, the Narakis who own the property next to me could do the same thing. We're going to build a house, and we're going to build it to commercial standards, but we're not going to do the site work to commercial standards because of the cost of it. And then we're going to come back after that's all in and ask to have it approved as a commercial site plan. So there was a method here, I truly believe, based on the knowledge I have of the whole process, that frankly shouldn't be allowed to happen. But if the applicant is willing to correct that driveway approach, I would be satisfied. But there are thousands of square feet of water that now come to Kraus Road, and some of it crosses. You may or may not know, I actually mitigate water from Kraus Road with a rain garden myself, because Kraus drained onto my property. But I have a back slope on my drive, so I'm not dumping my water into Kraus Road. I'm actually accepting some of Kraus Road's water, and now more of it, now that Mr. Brennan has been allowed to run that driveway. If you go by there, you'll see it goes about 75 feet straight down, no back slope. Sue, I know you understand that kind of grading to prevent water from entering a right-of-way. That needed to be addressed on that site plan. That's critical in the village. And unless the Road Commission holds tight, and the Drain Commission, I hope they do, and I'll lobby them the best I can, is we're going to have an albeit very less expensive site development for the applicant at the cost of myself, my wife, and surrounding properties. I would just ask that in the future, you give that strong consideration before any kind of a switch from commercial to residential and back to commercial. Because I truly believe, and I apologize if I'm proven wrong, that that was done by design to save money, probably not time. And I would hope that the engineer's requirements be very robust, because we have a site, I calculated tonight, about 10,000 square feet of hard surface runoff that never came off that site before, that has to go somewhere. And the choice is Kraus Road, Heartland Road, and a regulated wetland to the south, and also the post office's property. So thank you again for your consideration and hard work.
All right.
I'm sorry, I just lost my cool and raised my hand.
You're fine.
Okay.
You're fine. You're good.
But as you can tell, I'm very passionate.
You're passionate.
Yeah, and I have a financial interest. I have a tenant in my building, and I have times where my drive floods, and it's going to flood more. And Kraus Road, even the supervisor noticed how much it has deteriorated. I disagree with Mr. Brennan. Water is running off of that site to places it never ran before. And for a long time, for almost 15 years, I was there every day, so I understand the drainage patterns pretty well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anybody else this evening? If not, Troy, do you have anything for planner's report?
I do. I have a couple things for planner report. So, last meeting I talked about was there interest in doing a work session. It looks like our next meeting, we won't have any applicants, so we will probably do a work session meeting. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. I haven't done a work session meeting here in my time, so I guess we'll be learning how that goes, and we'll have a couple of items to talk on that. There won't be any actual applicant there. The second one is training sessions. We have a brand-new Planning Commission member, Member LaRose has joined us tonight. It's her first meeting. Certainly, I wanted to remind all of you that, you know, the township does offer for you to go to training. I handed out a recent pamphlet. Take a look at that. There's other ones that will be coming up in the future, just as a reminder to give consideration. If you see any training events, all of you get notice of those things. If there's something you see or desire, please let me know, and I'll do what I can to help make that happen. So those are the two things I had.
All right, move on to item 11, committee reports or comments. We all have to welcome Michelle LaRose to the Planning Commission. Anybody else? All right, we need a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Support.
White and LaRose. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you and good night.